Today we are going to discuss a topic that has fascinated people for centuries. What does the Bible say about spirits, ghosts, and those who summon the dead, necromancers? Do they really exist? And what is their place in the biblical worldview? This topic touches not only on our perception of the supernatural, but also our understanding of life, death, and the spiritual world. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. The Bible contains several references to spirits and even ghosts, but the approach to these phenomena differs from modern interpretations. For example, in the first book of Samuel, 1 Samuel 28, there is a story in which King Saul turns to the medium of Endor to summon the spirit of Samuel. This moment illustrates Saul's fear and desperation, as well as the condemnation of such practices in the biblical text. King Saul, desperate because of the imminent threat from the Philistines and feeling that God had stopped answering his prayers, decided to break God's law and consult a witch from Endor to summon the spirit of the prophet Samuel. The medium, fearing persecution, initially did not want to fulfill Saul's request, but upon learning that it was the king himself before her, she agreed. When the spirit of Samuel appeared, Saul was stunned and terrified. Samuel, as described in the text, foretold Saul's imminent death and the defeat of the Israelite army. This event has a dark and ominous character, showing that Saul's actions were displeasing to God. Summoning the spirit of the dead was an act of disobedience that led to tragic consequences. This episode emphasizes the importance of trusting God even in the most difficult situations, rather than trying to find answers through forbidden practices. In the Old Testament, God categorically forbids turning to mediums and necromancers. In the book of Leviticus, Leviticus 19:31, it says, "Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God." In the Bible, necromancy refers to the practice of summoning the spirits of the dead in order to gain knowledge or make predictions. Necromancers are mentioned as those who engage in such practices and violate God's laws. Summoning the dead and communicating with them is considered sinful because such actions demonstrate a lack of trust in God and a search for knowledge or help from sources that are displeasing to Him. In Deuteronomy 18:10-12, it says, "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." This prohibition emphasizes that any attempts to interact with the world of the dead are contrary to God's will. According to biblical principles, a person must rely on God and not on the spirits of the dead to find answers to their questions and receive guidance. The Bible also mentions evil spirits. It is important to note that the evil spirits mentioned in the Bible are not the souls of deceased individuals summoned by mediums or necromancers. Evil spirits are fallen angels who rebelled against God and were cast down from heaven. Their nature differs from that of the spirits of the dead summoned by necromancers. Evil spirits are entities opposed to God's will, seeking to cause harm and lead people away from God. Necromancers attempt to summon the spirits of the dead, which is forbidden by God, while evil spirits actively interfere in people's lives, trying to bring chaos and destruction. These two phenomena are not related, and they should be distinguished from one another. In the Gospels, there are several accounts of Jesus casting out demons and freeing people from their power. These evil spirits are fallen angels who oppose God and seek to harm humanity. Their presence highlights the reality of the spiritual warfare taking place in the world and the need for God's protection and grace. The Bible acknowledges the existence of spirits, but its approach to this issue is very different from the modern idea of ghosts, as the souls of the dead stuck between worlds. The Bible does not clearly confirm the existence of ghosts in the modern sense, as souls of the deceased that remain on earth and wander between worlds. The story of summoning Samuel's spirit by the medium of Endor is one of the few references to an appearance of a spirit of the dead, but this case is presented as an exception and is accompanied by condemnation. In the New Testament, when Jesus appears before his disciples after his resurrection, they mistake him for a ghost, but Jesus emphasizes that he is not a ghost, showing them his wounds and even eating before them to prove his physical reality. This episode underscores that in the biblical worldview, true life after death is not a ghostly existence, but a resurrection in a new body. The Bible clearly distinguishes between an evil spirit and the soul of the deceased. Ghosts, as the concept of trapped souls, do not align with the biblical teaching on life and death. According to the Bible, after death, the soul of a person either goes to be with God or awaits judgment. Attempts to suggest that a soul can remain on earth in the form of a ghost contradict this teaching. It is also important to note that all attempts to interact with the spirits of the deceased, even if perceived as ghosts, are condemned by God and considered sinful. Believers must rely on God's will and avoid practices that could lead to spiritual defilement and alienation from God. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about biblical views on the afterlife and spiritual warfare, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments and see you next time.